I'm Andrea. I have a 2-year-old daughter who's probably with us several times. I am an IFBB fitness pro. So I turned pro in 2019, not by accident. I don't want to dismiss like how challenging it is to turn pro, but I wasn't quite ready actually, like mentally. But a lot of people were like, "Hey, you should go to this national show and you should try to become a pro." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready." Not like most people who are like, as soon as they're qualified, they're like, "I want to go to a national show. I want to turn pro. I want to go." I was like, I don't know if I'm there yet. And then I went and then I won. So here I am. I had just gotten married that year. So then, like right when I was going to do my pro debut, I got pregnant. So I actually just started competing as a pro last year. In my other non-bodybuilding life, I'm a personal trainer and a cheerleading choreographer. So that's kind of, I get to travel all over the country, like working with teams. And so that's a lot of fun. But yeah, bodybuilding and cheerleading is pretty much my whole life. And my husband is also an IFBB pro.
So, what actually led you into just fitness in general? Was it through cheerleading?
Yeah, so I've always been in sports. I've been a cheerleader, I was in gymnastics, I did probably every sport, softball, basketball, like all the stuff when I was a little kid. I stuck with cheerleading because extracurriculars are very expensive, allegedly. I don't know. I haven't had to pay for them yet, so my daughter would like to. But my mom and my dad were like, "All right, pick something. Like, we're not doing 6 sports a year. So you need to pick the one that you like." Oh, I stuck with cheerleading, and that's what, I did high school, college. And yeah, I was just always into sports and fitness and exercise. I started personal training like on the side kind of in college. And then that's just what I stuck with after I graduated. I just, I was still doing cheerleading stuff, but then ultimately I just like dove into fitness. And I went to my first bodybuilding show just kind of by accident. My boss was sponsoring a bodybuilding show. And so he had free tickets and he was like, "I'm not going to this bodybuilding show. Do you want to go?" So me and my roommate, who both were employees, sorry, my daughter is again, who both were employees at the gym, we're like, "Yeah, sure, we'll go to this bodybuilding show for free." And that's when I was like, "I want to do that. I can do that." And then I competed the next year.
So, when it comes to cheerleading, was that something that in college, you kind of like had this idea, hey, I want to kind of keep doing this in some capacity? Did you just kind of stumble into, doing it how you're doing it now? How did that come about?
Kind of. So I worked for a company during the summers. I was teaching cheer camp during the summers. So I graduated high school. I was teaching cheer camp during the summer. I would go to school and then I'd come back to my parents for the summer, teach cheer camps, go back to school. Every single summer between school, I was teaching cheer camps. And then it just ended that like I just never stopped. I pretty much just never stopped with that summer job. And then it got to, after I graduated college, then I was offered a full-time position at that company. So I wasn't just doing summers anymore. I was doing it full time, like traveling all over the world. But I at that point now I'm full-time cheerleading and I was kind of like missing fitness. So I went back to personal training and back to like part-time cheerleading. So that then basically I was doing like half and half. But I don't think that I got into it thinking, "Oh, I'm going to do this for a career." I think I got into it like, "Oh, this is a cool summer job. I get to travel and teach cheerleading and make money." And then I just never stopped.
So, tell us a little bit more about that kind of traveling experience. Like, what does that all entail when it comes to like, how do you get set up? I'm assuming it's through the business that you're working for, but like, how do you actually specifically get set up with going and traveling here and like what you're actually doing?
So in the beginning of it, I was teaching cheer camps. So like, big universities, we would have cheer camps at big universities. Hundreds of kids would come to this one camp. Typically what you think of if I said their summer camp, like a bunch of kids going to one place and we were the counselors, right? So that was what I did for maybe the first 6 or 7 years. But then after that, I started doing like individual consulting with individual teams. So there were two ways that I would get set up with that. Either the teams would reach out to the company and say, "Hey, I need someone. These are the dates that I need someone to come." And then our boss would send it out to all the employees. Hey, this is the team. This is where it is. These are the dates. Who's available? We would all say, I'm available, I'm available, I'm available. And then our boss sends basically all of our resumes to the coach, and the coach says, that's the person I want. And then, they book the flights and go. Or sometimes I would be at cheer camp and, a coach would be like, oh, I really like you. I want you to come to our team again in the fall. And so then they would just same thing, book it through our boss, say, hey, I met Andrea at cheer camp. I want her to come back. And they would just book all of our travel and stuff like that.
And what kind of experience is that for, the actual camp? Is it very summer camp-ish, or is it more like pretty hardcore as far as, this is what we're doing?
A little bit of both. So we have different like styles of camp. And so there's typical summer camp that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of spirit. It's a lot of, it's cheerleading camp. So it is cheerleading skills, but it's a lot of games and team building and spirit and like pep rallies and stuff like that. But then we also have what we call masters camps, which are like for the competitive teams who are like, we don't need to go learn how to put on a good pep rally. We need to learn how to go win nationals. Like, so there's like the school spirit type cheer camps that are like a lot of fun and much more laid back. They have some skills, but it's not a big deal. And then there's the competitive cheer camps where these are teams that are placing in the top 10 at nationals that are like, we want to get better at cheerleading. We want to work on skills. We don't want to do sideline stuff. We don't want to do school spirit stuff. Like, we just want to do skills. When you get older, that stuff just feels really corny and you're just like, okay, I can't do this anymore. But at the same time, when you do just all skills, sometimes it's just like, this isn't fun. Like, this is just so serious all the time. So it's nice to do a little bit of both because, there's the fun stuff and then there's like the hard stuff where we really get to work and like really impact how these teams will do during their seasons. And you have to go into them all really with the same attitude of like, the goal is to get better. Just for some teams, better is up here, and for other teams, better is down here.
When it comes to science-backed supplements that taste great, 2NS is your one-stop shop. They truly maximize quality by making their own supplements in-house. With over a combined 90 years of experience, 2NS's team of industry experts has a commitment to research, quality, development, and innovation. The body is sacred, so give it the best. Check out all 2NS has to offer at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com.
Whenever you had that opportunity to go to that first show, that first bodybuilding show, you mentioned that like, oh, this is interesting. Like, what was specifically about it to you was like that kind of hooked you into it?
I think just in general, like the muscularity of these women. Like, I was someone who already worked out and I was already very fit, but I had never intentionally tried to build muscle. I was just fit because I was athletic and genetically, I was just a fit person. So I think seeing like, oh, this is what you can do when you're intentional, like when you want to lift more weights or you want to build a certain physique. So I don't know. I think just like seeing these women on stage that were like so muscular and like pretty, because they're in like these sparkly suits, they're in heels, like I was just like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I want to look like that. I think I can do that. So I think that for me was like seeing the intentionality between it compared to what my body looked like, which was fit, but really just by genetics and my environment.
So starting to, get into more of like the training for that was that kind of like a shock to you? Like wow, this is so much more intense than maybe what I was doing before?
The training, no. The diet, yes. So the training was very similar to what I was doing. I mean, I wasn't lifting really heavy. I mean, I was lifting what I thought was heavy. Everybody uses Google and they're like, okay, how do I get stronger? And so I'm like, okay, 12 to 15 reps on everything. And that was it. Like, so the training did get a little bit more intense, but it wasn't something that I was like, wow, this is crazy. It was definitely the food because, again, I ate healthy. I didn't I wasn't like, I wasn't eating McDonald's every day, but I wasn't paying attention to my food like that. I was just eating. Like, I was cooking at home. Me and my roommate go to Costco and get the stir fry veggies, and we would get the frozen chicken tenderloins, and we made stir fry pretty much every day, and eggs for breakfast, like pretty standard stuff, really. But if we wanted to go out to eat, we would go out to eat. It wasn't like, okay, let me make sure this fits in my mac. Like it wasn't. It was just whatever. So when I started competing, I had reached out to a friend of mine. Her dad was a coach. And so I was like, hey, I want to start competing. Where do I start? What do I do? So he like kind of coached me and gave me this diet. And it was just more diet discipline than I had ever exercised in my life. And I was like, this is crazy. I wasn't like hungry. It's not that it was hard hunger wise or calorie wise. It was just hard. Like, if I wanted to eat something that wasn't on that list, I couldn't eat it.
Right.
Sometimes I did, honestly, but I think the hardest part was just like, yeah, it's your roommate's birthday and she wants to go to Cheesecake Factory. Like, you don't get to just wild out and get chicken Alfredo and a red velvet cheesecake just because you feel like it. Like, that's not how it works anymore.
Experiencing not getting to do those things, a few times, was it ever thought to you, like, maybe, is this really worth it? Is it, am I putting myself under too much, strictness, or too much of, is it too much? Did that ever cross your mind?
Not really. I think, I was watching like a lot of like bodybuilding.com videos and reading those articles. And so I think I was still very like, this is so cool. Like, I'm a bodybuilder. Like, I kind of like, not that I liked the struggle by any means, but I kind of was like, well, I'm a bodybuilder. I can't eat cheesecake today. Like, I don't think I really ever felt that way. Especially after I competed the first time, I was like, oh yeah, definitely would recommend doing this again. So like, I definitely was like, yep, totally worth it. Would do it again.
That first experience competing, take us through kind of what that was like, and how would you kind of compare that mentally, emotionally, physically to, cheerleading?
I think it was a lot lower stress because in cheerleading, I was a very high level. I was on a team that wins nationals regularly. So there was a lot more pressure in cheerleading. In bodybuilding, I was kind of just like doing it for fun. So I didn't have the pressure of like, okay, make sure you go in. I didn't know anything about bodybuilding. I didn't know what first call outs meant. I didn't know what it meant to be standing in the middle or moving out to the side. I literally was just up there, standing there with my flower in my hair and my heels, like, woo, this is so cool. Like, when I think back to that competition, I'm amazed that I even made it through it because I was so oblivious to everything. I didn't get a spray tan. I used like baby oil to glaze myself. I went to school that day. Like, I came and competed and then I went to school in the middle of the day, which I guess is fine, but like, most competitors are not still going on with their regular life on the day of the competition. Like, I was like, I got school, so I gotta go. And then after class, I went back to the show.
That's awesome.
It was so oblivious. So there was like no pressure. Not even comparable to cheerleading back then. Now it's very similar because now I have an expectation that I'm competitive. But back then it was purely hobby, purely for fun, like no pressure at all.
At what point did it kind of turn into more of like a strict lifestyle? I have expectations for what I want to do in this show. Like, when did it turn into that?
I would say probably the year that I turned pro. So I did that one show in college. It was, I don't know, 2009 or something like that. It was just this one random show that I did. Then years and years later, I was like, I think I want to do bodybuilding again. So I did another show and I was definitely much more serious. I knew about things, I understood. This was my first time now competing in fitness. So I had to make a routine and all that stuff. I don't think that I was still like really, really serious about it, but I competed that year. And then 2 years later, so now it's 2019, then 2 years later, now me and my husband are both prepping. We were engaged. So we were like, yeah, let's get in shape for our wedding and let's prep for this show that's 2 weeks before our wedding. So that year I had multiple shows lined up. So that's when I was like, I've competed twice. Now I want to, I've never, that first time I competed, I didn't rank. I don't even know what I got. I know I didn't get a medal. And then the next time I competed, I was by myself. So like I won, but it didn't matter. So then I was like, okay, this time we're doing it together. I'm probably going to compete against people. So that's when I got more serious and was like, okay, I want to do well. So that was 2019 that I started that prep, that I was like, okay, I really want to do well. And then like I said, I turned pro, then got pregnant. So I took a couple of years off, and then I started competing again last year. And that I definitely would say, like, since turning pro, again, the level of expectation has increased even more, because now I'm a pro level and now I'm Olympia qualified. So it's not even just like, it's definitely not just for fun anymore. Like at this point, now the competitor in me is like, okay, these are the things that need to be done. Like, you're not going to go, this is not just for fun. It's not fun to get last place, Andrea. That's not fun.
Making that switch over into fitness, what kind of challenges did you experience?
Not knowing like how to build a routine. Like I'm a choreographer, right? So I know how to build a cheerleading routine. I was just watching videos on the internet and I was like, okay, I think I can do something like that. Watching YouTube and being like, okay, I think this is good. Like, I didn't know what they judged on. I mean, I knew what the criteria was, but it's very, very like, okay, these are the 4 skills you need. That's it. Like, there's no real guidelines. So that was a big challenge for me. But I mean, in general, like, just staying healthy, that's a thing in fitness, is like not getting injured. I mean, an injury will take you out. In a lot of other divisions, an injury can slow you down because obviously you can't necessarily train. I mean, depending on what the injury is. But in fitness, we have to do a routine. If you're injured and you can't practice or you can't perform, like, there's nothing that you can do about that. So I think that was a big challenge: prioritize warming up properly and cooling down properly and stretching and prehab.
When it comes to like the show day, obviously because it's a different kind of performance, what is different within the day?
The first half is the same. So in fitness, we have 2 rounds. We have a bikini round, which is exactly the same as figure. It's the same, like exactly the same as figure. If you didn't know it was fitness, you would think you were watching figure. Same criteria, same comparisons, all that. So that's pre-judging. We do that. Then in finals is when we do our 2-minute routine. So up until right after pre-judging, it's the same as pretty much any other day. But then after pre-judging, that's when a fitness competitor compared to other divisions would probably eat a little bit more, like probably higher carbs. So now we have to be able to perform at the back half of the day. So we're eating more. I don't know what everybody's protocol is, but I think a lot of people probably don't drink a lot of water in the middle of the day because they still have to come back looking tight at the end. I think in fitness, at least for me, that does, like, I'm drinking water because at this point, now that you're coming back for the second half, it doesn't matter. Because now it's just your routine. They've already judged your physique. So that would be the difference. I think a little bit more food freedom, just so that you are ready to physically perform for the back half of the day.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below, or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com. Ready to take your supplements to the next level? 2NS is here to help. 2NS strives to help you attain the highest degree of health and performance. Combining cutting-edge science and the best from nature, 2NS gives fitness enthusiasts and athletes the fuel they need. Check them out at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com.
At the end of the day, is there any difference? And I'm sure probably just kind of depending on how you did, but was there any kind of difference for you is there any kind of like emotional, maybe just simply because of the hydration in the food? Is there any kind of like mental difference? Is it your body feel different, anything like that?
Oh, definitely emotionally different. So my first competition I ever did was figure. I think just with the other divisions, like, when I was in figure, you show up, you go on stage, you get off stage. And I don't know, it didn't really feel, it was fun, but it wasn't exciting. It was just like, okay, all right, show's over. Now, like, that's it. In fitness, like, you have this whole, I was actually talking to someone the other day about it. Like, you have this whole, like, game day aspect because you have to perform, you have to execute. Like, it's not enough to just, in the physique round, you show up, you look the way that you look, it is what it is. But in the routine round, it's like, not only do I have this routine choreographed, but I have to execute it. So it's not like, there's no like, okay, we did it, we showed up, we're done. It's like, now I'm about to go on stage, and these skills I've been practicing that maybe are, some of them are 10 out of 10, some of them are 5 out of 10. I have to hope that I nail that skill on stage right now. And so when you perform, like that performance aspect, I just like coming off of that, that's when you just have this. I mean, assuming you executed your routine the way that you want to. And lucky for me, I've always done that. I've never come off stage feeling like, man, that wasn't the way that I wanted to do that. And I'm lucky for that. Because sometimes you do get off stage and you're just like, I messed up here, I messed up there. But every time I get off stage, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so good. That was so fun. I'm so proud of myself. I'm so happy. And that it's just, you don't get that feeling when it's just the comparisons, in my opinion. Maybe people in other divisions get that, but I never got that when I was in figure. I only get that in fitness, like that performance aspect of like, oh my gosh, I just did it.
And what kind of background typically do you see in fitness? Is it a lot of like gymnastics? Is it a lot of cheerleading? And what's like maybe the most bizarre thing that you've heard somebody said, "Oh, I have this background, but I do
Um,
fitness."
So cheerleading, gymnastics, dance, those are the standards. Some people come from nothing. Like they're like, oh, I was a soccer player. I'm like, how did you learn how to do the sports? How did you learn how to do a handstand? You were a soccer player. Like there's some stuff like that. I do know one girl that is a stripper, which probably honestly helps her out in a lot of the like, flexibility is one of the categories. And I mean, there's also a lot of like acrobatic moves that I think she does. So she actually competes also in pole fitness, which is, I don't really know how widespread that is, but I know it's like one of the divisions at the Legion Sports Fest. So that's how I know that she competes there. That would be the craziest thing to me is people who have absolutely zero like acrobatic background who are like, oh, I was a volleyball player. And then also like that girl is like, oh, I'm a stripper. I'm like, oh, cool.
What about like getting up there and feeling like what's the kind of the difference whenever, because cheerleading, you're obviously not alone. What does it kind of feel like differently to you to have just you up there? It's all kind of comes down to you.
It's a 50-50 split. So I really like it because I am someone who like, I like to be in control. So I like that there's nobody else to depend on. Like it's me, myself, and and I'm a performer. So I don't have to worry about anybody else. But it's also obviously nerve wracking because you're like up there on stage and everybody's staring at you and you're just like, I hope I don't embarrass myself. But honestly, for me personally, I like it a little bit better, just because I always know that I can bank on myself. And because I've been on teams where, I have the performance of my lifetime, and then like someone else on my team has the worst performance of their life. And now, like, I'm getting penalized for that because I'm on the team. I've also been on teams where I was the person who messed up. And again, I've never actually had that happen in individual performance, but I know that the one time it happened in a team performance, I was like horrified and devastated. And honestly, I think it's more because I felt like I let my team down. And I think that if it had been me individually, I would have been upset, but I would have just been like, well, it happened. I wouldn't have that like that letting down feeling because it would just be me.
When it comes to training that routine and training the different aspects that are involved in fitness that aren't involved in the others, what kind of time commitment is that at the pro level and at the Olympia level?
Time commitment is what it is. It's a lot of time. So we all have different cardio regimens. Obviously, it just depends on, your coach and your body and all this stuff. But, we have to lift, we have to train, we have to pose, just like every other division. We have to do cardio, just like every other division. And then in addition to that, we have to practice. And I would say most of us are practicing somewhere between, I don't know, two to 2 to 8 hours a week. And two is on the very, very low end. Like two is probably when you're a few weeks out and you just need to go and warm up and do it a couple times and leave. Like I would say most of us in like this point, so I'm, 9 weeks out from the Olympia, I'd say between that like 6 to 12 weeks, we're getting 8 to 10 hours additional of practice because we're still trying to work out skills. We're trying to build our stamina. We're having to run sections. Okay, I'm going to do that again. Okay, what if I move? There's still a lot of moving parts that we're trying to figure out. And again, we're trying to build our stamina up. So we're like doing it again, do it again, do it again, versus like, again, once it gets closer, you can peel back that practice time because it's just there to run it, make sure you still got it, and then go. But yeah, right now, I mean, it's probably a good 6 extra hours a week on top of right now for me, that's like 8 hours of cardio a week plus 6 to 8, depending on how much time I spend between my sets of lifting a week, plus probably an hour or two of cardio or posing a week. It's a full-time job. It doesn't pay like it. So you have to love what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, the aspect of like performing, but also not being like in, I want to say like in a way like performance shape compared to like, being maybe like a cheerleader, you're not wearing your body down as much. Like, in bodybuilding, it is like a prep is very much like a wearing your body kind of down and, increasing training, decreasing, food, your hydration level on that day is different. Like there's so many ways that like whether you're talking in some sports too, like wrestling or like you could look at the UFC, it's kind of a similar way. Like you're performing at such a high level, such like a routine thing that you practice so much on and you do so much on, but your body isn't in the like peak state. So
Yeah,
it's
not
interesting
in
that those
place.
two levels are like combined in that. Can you like almost simulate it a little bit to like what it's going to feel like when you are in that state?
Yes. So there have last year, what I did a couple times before I competed was because I kind of just practice whenever I can practice. It depends on my work schedule or, when childcare is open at the gym or something like that. So it's kind of just whenever. But there would be at least a couple times that I would make sure that my food and my timing aligned the way that it would on a show day. So especially when I get late in prep, I like to drink energy drinks before I work out. And I was like, there would be times where I'm like, okay, no energy drink. You're not gonna have energy drink on stage day. Like, okay, this is what you're gonna wait. This is the time you need to wake up. This is when you need to like time your meals perfectly. This is okay, we're gonna do this. How long are you gonna warm up? Like on our show day, we get like a 10 to 15 minute warm up where all the girls are on stage, just kind of like feeling out the floor, testing out our skills. And then from there, we probably wait another 20 to 30 minutes before we're on stage, depending on your last name, where you are in the order. And so I would do that exact thing. I would wake up super early in the morning, have my first meal, time my meals exactly the way they need to be timed, do my water the way that I would expect my water to be, warm up the way that I would expect to warm up, time it so that my performance, like I try to simulate the day as closely as possible just so I can get a gauge of like what is this going to be like? The only difference is, on your show day, obviously you have adrenaline, but we try to control as many of the things as you can.
Because it's mental, you have to remember your routine. You have to perform it from a muscular, neuromuscular, proprioceptive aspect. Like with all those things, it's just so crazy that, that it goes so well as often as it does, because
It truly is.
it's just
It
like all the
truly
cards
is.
are kind of stacked against you.
Yeah, it actually is crazy. Like when I think about it, when I really like sit down and think about the things that we do, I'm like, this isn't right. Like this should not happen. I'd say the number one thing is muscle memory and just our mental state. Just knowing that you don't have a choice. Like, what am I going to do? Get up there and be like, oh, stop the music. I'm tired. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't have a choice but to do it. So I think that's one thing is like the level of mental toughness, I think is just, it's elevated because you don't really have a choice.
So going from, just regular pro prep, if you want to call it that, to Olympia prep, what for you has changed? What for you has elevated?
My discipline, I'll tell you that. I told my coach at the beginning of this, I was like, I have never in my life given a prep more than 80%. Like, because I just never cared enough. Like, it was always just for fun. Even my first pro season, like, I cared, but I also had a lot just going on in my personal life. So I was just like not mentally there I just didn't have the mental toughness. I was like, I'm going to eat this thing or I'm going to skip cardio today and it's just going to be what it is. But this time around, it's definitely the level of intention is a lot higher. When you go from just prepping for any pro level show to prepping for the Olympia, I think all of us have a higher level of expectation for ourselves because we're competing against winners. When you go to a regular pro level show, everybody's just trying to compete, everybody's trying to win, everybody's trying to do whatever. But when you get to the Olympia, it's like everybody here has won. So it's a higher level of just like, oh, I just want to go do the best I can. It's like, yes, I want to do the best I can, but now I'm playing against other people who have won. It's the same, we always used to say the same thing in college when people would come, incoming freshmen would come to our team. And a lot of them, like, we had to adjust their attitudes because we're like, yeah, you were the best where you came from, but all of us were the best where we came from. Like, that's why our program is so good. So I think that's like the difference is just like increasing the intensity on the cardio and not letting myself like, oh, it's okay if I miss it today, or it's okay if I just eat this instead, or it's just a lot more a lot less wiggle room when it comes to the Olympia, especially because it's obviously a bigger stage, but it's just more exposure. If I go do bad at like some pro show where it's like a bottom tier pro show, like nobody cares. Like every single person who's watching the Olympia is going to see me compete. So, so it's like a higher level of pressure there as well.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
Is the Olympia something that, you said, you kind of mentioned like it's always been for fun, but has the Olympia always been a target, or is it kind of just like something that you're doing, it's just like, okay, I got to this point kind of?
It has not always been a target, actually. I remember telling my husband, like, is it weird that I don't want to go to the Olympia? Like, I don't care if I go to the Olympia. This is before I stepped on the pro stage at all. I was like, is that weird? Like, are there other pros who don't care if they go to the Olympia or not? And he's like, I don't think so. Like, I don't know, maybe there are, but I also, to be honest, I also think that was a defense mechanism. Like, in case I'm not good enough or in case I don't make it there, I never really wanted to go anyway. But I competed But I would say, so I competed twice. I did my pro debut. I did another show. I did horrible at both. Not really. I didn't do horrible. My routine was great, but I looked horrible. I was not in shape yet. Then I was like, well, this is not fun. Like I said, I'm doing this for fun. And you know what's not fun? Getting last place. So then I tightened up and I did the Ben Weeder Natural show and I got third. And I was like, got my first taste of victory. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I love winning, even though I didn't win. But for me, third place absolutely felt like winning after I had just gotten last place pretty much twice. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So then after I got third at Ben Weeder, now I'm like, okay, I think I can win. Like, I think that I'm good. I think I just wasn't good before, but I actually do think that I'm good. So then we start looking at the rest of the show schedule and we're like, okay, well, Toronto Pro's in 3 weeks. Like, let's just see how much it would cost to go there. And let's see if we can go. Like, maybe I can win Toronto Pro. Like, that was the whole thing. Like, maybe I can win. Oh my gosh, am I going to go to the Olympia? And so that was when it turned like, okay, like this is competitive now. And I did. I went to Toronto Pro and I won and I qualified. And then now, obviously, it is still a thing that I do for fun, but now it's definitely much more like before I was literally just like showing up and whatever place I got is the place I got. And I did not care like that much. Like, I didn't like getting last place for sure, but I never got last place at my best. So I think if I would have been at my best and still gotten last place, I think I wouldn't have cared. I think I'd have been like, well, I still killed it, like whatever. But I think that when I was at my best, seeing that I was competitive at my best, I was like, oh, this isn't for fun anymore. I'm competitive. I'm good at this. So it wasn't always on my radar until I realized it could be on my radar.
And what does it feel like to be stepping on the stage with, people who you initially were trying to figure out this side of the sport, you're actually going to be competing against them?
It's crazy. It is the coolest thing. So I have a group chat with a couple of the other girls that are qualified. Um, so when I won Toronto Pro, these other two girls, the girls that got second and third, we're in a group chat because since Toronto Pro last year, they have now both won a show. So we are all qualified for the Olympia. And we're all like, we're rookies in the sport. Like, their pro debut was Toronto Pro when I won. And so they're both only a few shows in as well. And we all three have just been talking about like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe we get to compete with Oksana and this and that. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, you guys, I'm going to be standing in between Oksana and Adela. Like, and Adela is an 8-time Olympia champion, and Oksana is, I think, 3 or 4. And I'm like, I'm going to be standing in between these two. Like, I'm going to be like, we're just talking about how we're just going to be fangirling the whole time. Just like, can I take a picture with you? Can I take a picture with you? Like, I am over the moon about it. Like, as much as I want to do well, obviously, I'm just like, I can't even believe that I get to be in the same, like, on the same stage at the same time as these people. Like, I don't think that I have fully wrapped my mind around the fact that I'm like considered like at the same competitive level as them. Like, it's not real to me. Now, obviously, they're going to be going there trying to win, trying to be top 3, top 5 at the lowest, really. And I'm just like, I just want to be my best. I don't know. I might get 15th or I might get 10th or like, so it's obviously different in that way. But I'm just like, oh my goodness, the fact that I get to like be in comparisons with these women is just, it's unreal. And I was like, there's that Meet the Olympians thing. And I'm like, I'm gonna be in other people's lines. Like, yeah, like, forget my table. I'm gonna be like, sorry, I'm closed. I'm going over here to this person's line. Like, that's how it was at the Arnold. I was at the Arnold, my protein sponsor. And I was like seeing all these people and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe that is this person. Oh my goodness. I saw like Brandon Hendrickson. So my husband's a men's physique pro. So that's another division that I follow like pretty closely. So I'm like, oh my goodness, that's Brandon Hendrickson. That's current Mr. Olympia men's physique. Like, and I'm like totally fangirling. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna be just at the same place. Just down the street, down the road from each other. I don't know. It's really crazy, but it's cool.
Yeah, it is. Having kind of the attitude that you have about it, it's it's kind of cool because it seems like it is so much fun for you, as much as you are taking it seriously now, it just still seems like it's so much fun. But what kind of advice would you have for someone who wants to get into bodybuilding, regardless of, what route they want to go down?
I would say the first thing is like make sure you have a support system. Um, Bodybuilding is it's supposed, people say it's a selfish and a lonely sport, and I think it's miserable if you do it that way. Like it's not fun if you don't do it, with support of other people. Because that's one thing, like having my husband even be a bodybuilder, it's just so nice because he gets it. Like he gets what I'm like, I have to go do cardio. He's not like, no, come on, let's just do this instead. Like you can miss your, like, or when it's meal prep, I'm like, I need to meal prep, or like sometimes he preps my meals for me. I prep his meals for him. Um, and like just having people around you that are willing to like support you and not, because there's always the people that are like, no, just live a little, have a bite of this. I'm like, no, I'm not going to have a bite of that. Like, it's hard to deal with that if you're a first time competitor. Like, most first time competitors are not going to be like, no, I'm really serious. They're going to be like, oh, okay, it's just one. Um, and then just like beat yourself. I used to love, and I do still love doing it, but for a different reason. I used to be on everybody's pages, looking at everybody's stage shots, looking at this, putting my progress pictures next to people's stage shots. Like I was so obsessed with what everybody else was doing. And now I like watching other people, not because of like how I compare, just because I think it's interesting. I'm really interested in everybody's journey, but that's one thing I think for first time competitors, it's easy to look at Instagram and be like, oh my gosh, I'm falling behind. I'm not good enough. Look at that person. Look at this person. Look at what they're doing. But just like stay in your lane, trust the people that you trust, and don't compare yourself to everybody else because everybody looks great on Instagram by themselves. When you get on stage under those harsh lights, everybody's reality comes to reality. So it's not even worth the stress, and there's nothing that you can do about it. There is absolutely nothing that I can do. If I see another girl that looks better than me, there's nothing that I can do. I can see all of Missy. She posts a lot of her progress pictures. Me looking at Missy's progress pictures is not going to change the way that my body looks at all. It's not going to change the way that she shows up. It's not going to change the way that I show up. So why is it worth the stress of being like, oh my gosh, Missy looks so good. I'm so nervous. Like, it doesn't change anything. So just don't let social media stress you out, or, you know, don't let it affect what you do, because you can only control you.
If you want to share your social medias, anything where people can follow you, can go ahead and do that.
You can follow me on Instagram at memfitdre. That's pretty much the only thing that I post on regularly. I do have a TikTok that's also memfitdre, but I post like once a month, so it's not worth it. But Instagram is where I'm very active. I also have a YouTube page, which is also linked on my Instagram. My YouTube is like my journey to the Olympia stuff. But Instagram is where you can find me. Memfitdre, MEMFITDRE.